So we left it last time at the um, friendship. And so today the fifth homily is related with priesthood and human suffering. Thou art a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. Perhaps you have been asking yourself, my young friend, why I have been addressing you, and by what authority? What right do I have to give this message, which is disturbing you and obliging you to face up to disquieting questions? Why have I come to confirm your own misunderstood fears, and to open up to you perspectives which are so new and unexpected that they may break down your fragile balance of defenses? Make a pause here. I watched it the other day with my kids, the movie Matrix, and there is a scene there where Neo, who's the guy that's supposed to be the savior of this world, um, goes to one of the main characters there. I forgot exactly what his name was, but he's offering him two pills. He's offering him a blue pill and a red pill, right? And the whole premise of the movie is that everybody, all the men are used as battery, and there are some aliens that are infusing in their heads a reality that is just a dream. So the reality is that you're in a battery used, and the dream is that you're living a normal life. And so he's offering to Neo, he's offering these things. The blue pill is gonna, you're gonna continue to dream and everything, but the red pill is gonna give you the reality, which is you cannot go back. Once you wake up of this dream, you cannot go back in it. And so, in the same way, Father George here, he does the same thing with these people. He gives them the red pill. I forgot if the pills are the same as in the movie. I'm sorry about that, but I don't remember. But the idea is that he gives them the reality pill, because people who were born in communism, they didn't know what it was before, maybe from their parents, maybe from their grandparents. But a lot of them, what was taught in school was a brainwashing, kind of a communist dream that was force-fed upon them. And they had no choice. What Father comes through through his words, he comes and wakes them up from this dream. And of course, when somebody wakes you up from a dream, you have the opportunity to ask, why did you wake me up? I liked my dream. Sometimes we have this beautiful dream and wake up in the morning and say, why did you wake me up? I wanted to continue, but it was a dream. it was not reality. So that's what he's talking about here. He says, perhaps by uncovering for you the purity and the innocence which you did not recognize, I have made you even more vulnerable in this wicked world. I've made you more open to suffering, and it is natural that you should ask, what is the purpose of suffering? Has it a finality, or is it just a blind happening, a fate traced by the stars, or an endless ocean in which you swim without hope of reaching any shore? I speak to you in the name of Christ and his church, in the name of the priesthood to which Christ called me, because nothing in this world is an interplay of unconscious, arbitrary happenings. All things stem from a cause and hold fast towards an end, which stands outside this world. The cause is God, the end is God. He is the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. So pause here for a second. When we wake up of this dream, which is, the fact that sometimes in the science world, or in the secular world, or the humanist world, or the communist world, and atheistic world, in a world without God, the only reality that is presented to us is the material reality. Is that things are about facts, it's about science, it's about math, it's about physics. But we know that we are more than that. And the more we become attuned with another reality, which is the reality of God, the more we understand that this world that is presented to us as being random, as coming from nowhere and going to another nowhere, is actually well thought in the mind of God, in the rationality of God, in the logos of God. And this world has a definite beginning with a purpose behind it, and is also has a goal, and is very well defined. And so when we wake up of this dream, we realize that things are much better in a way and different in another way. Much better because we know that everything has a purpose and a goal, and different because now we have to engage in it. We have the option now to engage in it, which is not always an easy thing, because you cannot claim that you don't know, but you do. And so now you have the choice to engage or not, with the consequences. Okay, so let's continue. But what is the image of this world? What certainty does it offer us? What happiness awaits us at the unknown corners of life? What consolations in misfortune? I will not begin with life or death, neither with a beginning nor the end, but with a given, that which happens to us every day. Have you asked yourself, young person, what is your purpose in the world, and whether everything is reduced simply to that? If you were born to be slaves of matter, even if only as a philosophical justification, then the end of your life is slavery. If your freedom is reduced to need and logic, then your freedom is slavery. If all our knowledge is reduced to a sterile and never realized understanding of the laws of matter, then our knowledge is slavery. If our love is reduced to the struggle for existence and our sacrifice for the perpetuation of the species, then these things too are but slavery. And finally, if all of our convictions spring from an imposed official doctrine, then they cannot be but slavery. And in all this series, young friend, where is the place for your soul? You see, this is the greatest deception of materiality and atheism, is that eventually everything ends in being a slave. You are a slave if, let's say, you have no free will and everything is determined by the chemicals in the air, by the temperature of the soil, by the DNA of your parents, then there is no free will. You are a slave to your environment. If you think that God doesn't exist and there is no freedom, and then you are a slave of that idea that there is nothing more than this matter. If you think that everything can be explained by science, then you miss the infinite of God and so forth there. So by saying that things can be reduced to an ideology, can be reduced to a way of doing things, can be reduced to a way of talking or thinking, this is slavery. We are much more than that, and our freedom comes not from our material existence, but from our connection with another existence, with a spiritual existence, the existence in God. We have been created not with a purpose to be a link between the material world, as we have been taken from the earth, and be a link with the spiritual world. That's the breath that God has put into us. So man is a link between the two. He is material, but he's not completely material, because it's matter that opens up to God. And he's not completely spiritual, because there is a difference between the creator and the creation. And we can never be completely what God is by nature, but we can be what he is only by participation in his life. And that's a beautiful thing, because there is an opening of God towards us and of us towards God. And we meet in this freedom of love. God loves us. Nobody coerces God. Nobody pushes God to love us. He just does. And so nobody is pushing us, God for sure not, to love him, right? So that's why we cannot force religion or belief or faith on anybody, because we have to give them the opportunity to believe on their own and free themselves. What about the soul? Let's see what Father says. Your sense that there exists, away from all the materialism with which you have been intoxicated, and far from the atheism which has been imposed upon you like a violent ideology, something vaster, more authentic, and yet closer to you personally than all that which suffocates you in this material bath. Your spirit within you propels you towards that something, as towards a world only envisioned. Please mute yourself so we can hear each other. This world sees its own image, like the blue sky glistening in the sun, through the grid of prohibitions which this society impose on us. So what was happening in the communist world is that they were trying to put a wall against you, an ideological wall, an information wall, a physical wall of the prisons or the gulags or the borders that were closed there. And they thought that if if they can always surround you with such walls, then you will never know the reality. They can shelter you completely from reality and make you live in that communist utopia, in that communist dream. That was the thing. But what Father is saying here, that the sun is going to find a way to shine through small cracks, everything. So you will continue to have the notion of light. Okay, there will be some darkness. Some darkness will be enlightened by even a small array that is able to go through one of those cracks. Is going to continue to feed the belief the light exists, because darkness is nothing else but the absence of light, and you can never take all light away. Let's continue. You must know, friend, that neither an atheist ideology nor the materialist order, no matter how authoritatively it might be imposed upon you, is capable of raising up an absolute, impregnable wall between you and the spiritual world. The soul cannot be made prisoner. This is a law which the materialists refuse to recognize at their own peril. On the spiritual level, there is no captivity without hope. And that has been shown plentifully by Father George himself, as he was speaking from experience, because he was already in prison for 15 years. So he knew, he went through the most gruesome and most sophisticated experiments in political prisoners, in political imprisonment history, and he came with a stronger faith, a faith that gave him the grace from God to preach these sermons, and to take again the courage to speak up and be a father for the people that were listening to him, the young people that were listening to him. So that hope that is in there, in every person, that maybe tomorrow I will be released, maybe that God will have mercy on me, maybe if not now, later. That hope is that what kept them all alive and kept the faith strong, and actually increased it. Your teachers speak to you of atheism and secretly go to church. That was the the norm there. You know, it was the communism could never penetrate in a society that was so deeply orthodox, so deeply Christian, for generations from generation, from St. Andrew, who's considered the patron saint of Romania, who preached in the eastern part of Romania, all the way to the priests that were put into prison there. Christianity was embedded in the Romanian fiber. And so, yes, sometimes you had to say what you had to say, but you knew who you were. Okay, so that's why he speaks here about teachers that secretly they went to church. Behold the crack through which the golden light of the spiritual dimensions reaches you. Your ideological leaders thunder and hurl lightning against religion, uttering the most foul curses, yet at the moment of disaster, they make the sign of the cross, asking for God's help. As for example, during the earthquake from March 4, 1977, behold another crack through which the soul escapes the suffocating locker which the official ideology diligently built up for you. In 1977, there was a huge earthquake in the area of Bucharest and surrounding cities, and half of Bucharest was demolished, just fell off. It was thousands of people that died during that time, and it was very bad. And so you can see that in moments like this, communism offers no solution, offers no hope, offers no exit, and nothing. But God can, because with God, even in suffering, even in death, we have life and comfort through Him. And that cannot be taken once it has entered your fiber. Even if it's in the previous generations, you know, their spiritual DNA, sort of saying, has been transmitted to you through the spiritual fatherhood and motherhood, through baptism, through chrismation, through the holy sacrament that every person that is a Christian has received. And that could not be stopped. In atheist meetings, those obliged to speak condemn those who believe or who were caught in the criminal act of going to church. Yet away from the lying words, far from their false stone platform proclamations, you discern their fear of being discovered as also having religious beliefs. The lie in which they so lamentably swim breaks down once more the wall of your incarceration, and you say, as the sweet light breaks through, Whence this unnatural light? It is a light foreign to our world. I spoke to you about these things in my previous 4 sermons. I will continue to speak about them, for I am a priest of Christ. God has revealed to us through love the mysteries of his works. And Jesus has commanded me to make it known to you, so that you will say no more, I did not know it. I speak so that you might know that you can fly, and that only spiritual flight is truly exalted. The flight of materialism is flight with broken wings, right? So we cannot fly. You can take a plane and fly, but you're going to run out of gas or kerosene, whatever they use. But with Christ, you can fly to the infinite, because God is infinite. And you can rejoice in knowing that our union with God is going to last to the ages of ages. It's a beautiful thing, is that nobody can offer. Materialism can offer you only as much as matter endures. But God says there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. So this matter is going to have an end. Even the scientists that spoke about the Big Bang as being the origin of everything, they also predict an end to it. Even if it's going to be in billions of years, it's going to be an end. And what can they promise after your personal death? Nothing. As they were saying during communist times, whenever a comrade would die, said, comrade so-and-so has passed into non-existence. That's all they can offer. A material existence that is the slavery of matter, and then a fall into non-existence. While God can allow your soul to fly, allows your body, who has been composed from matter, to be recomposed from spiritualized matter, reunited with the soul, and enter into the kingdom. It's so beautiful that it cannot even compare. And once that enters into your spiritual DNA through your nation, affects every individual. And that's why communism fell in Russia. That's why it fell in all the communist countries, in Romania, in everywhere. That's why the Turks were not able to take away the Orthodoxy and Christianity from the Greeks for after 400 years over there, because it was in their fiber. I speak openly to you about all these things because the church of Christ has come out of the catacombs. She shines blindly on the soil of this country, which is highly esteemed in our hearts. The Enna Church, which is one of the churches that we spoke in the previous discussions, that was destroyed, and they built a restaurant on where it was. The Enna Church was destroyed, but who amongst us, Romanian and Christian, can forget it? A tavern, a symbol of a concept which considers the church a plague, will be put in its place, a tavern, so once more the people will be happy. Woe to the architect who builds there, binding his name forever with the destruction of something that was a demonstration of the Romanian genius of construction and faith. Woe to the officials who believe that they can win glory and power by the destruction of churches and the construction of bars. Woe to the concept that considers an Agapia Inn more valuable than the Agapia Monastery. Agapia Monastery is a monastery in Moldova, and there were plans to just send away all the nuns from the monastery and just build an inn there, kind of a hotel, and people will just come there to rejoice and go to vacation and relaxation. Woe to those who consider that the Romanian Patriarchate is a piece of history which can be placed in a museum, and who have not understood that it has a real life which is always present. The Romanian Patriarchate is a historical building there on top of a hill in the center of Bucharest, close to Piața Unirii, the Union place, and for many years was closed or was just reduced to very little personnel. And the Patriarchate itself and many of the churches and the monasteries, they were transformed in museums. Just something nice for the foreign tourists that will bring in dollars, in hard currency inside the country. They could say, wow, but there was nothing really that was considered as living. They considered that the church is dead, and what is left of it is just a crust, skeleton. And that can be, shown to others, as something curious, but not living. So it's not a historical relic, but a living soul. Woe to those who bow to force, allowing destruction, which will never be accepted by history. See, what they offer instead of Christianity and freedom and faith and love and soaring into the heavens, they offer pleasures, right? Even nowadays, if you think about it, what is this new um, culture that we see around us? What is it offering? Entertainment until you die. You got Netflix, Hulu, blah 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 blah. You can spend days without leaving your room there. It offers drinks that now, because of the pandemic, they can be delivered to your own home, right, to ease the pain of the pandemic. Drugs offers sex, offers all kinds of things that rather than freeing your soul, rather than freeing your being, are enslaving you to pleasures, right? And so a materialist person cannot offer you anything else but fleeting pleasures. And pleasure is different than joy. When you rejoice in the Lord, is not the same pleasure that when you take when you take drugs. Somebody the other day, I was watching a video of somebody that was praising the psychedelic drugs. They say that's a true spiritual experience. No, it's not. It's false. You've taken a drug that is creating some haywire connections in your brain there that you mistake for true spirituality. Spirituality is being united with God in prayer, is living in the church, is living within the experience of the church, the experience of the saints. Is not something that you can reproduce without effort by taking a pill. So all they offer and all they try to replace religion with is temporary, and it's not gonna last. And the communists offer the same thing that is offered today, only during that time was offered more forcefully, and now is offered more or less pleasurably. I've said all these things to you because I'm a priest. And because we are priests, we obey the command of God, which says that a burning light cannot be hid under a bushel, but must shine before all. I have said all these things, young friend, that you might judge if it is right before God to listen to men rather than to God. For he who gave himself up upon the cross for the salvation of the world commanded us not to hide the divine truth. I have said all these things to you that you might understand that through faith we shatter walls and break down the bonds of prejudice, and above all, we shall have tribulation in this world. Christ said that he broke down the wall on enmity between people and between us and God. There is no more barriers if we believe. If we believe, even death is not a barrier anymore, even suffering is not anymore. But God is always there. Through the presence of Christ in our lives, God and the kingdom is always with us. And so the sufferings of this world are part of the salvation of this world, just as the resurrection of Christ is part of the resurrection of this world and precedes it and feeds it. So we as priests, and now I speak about me and my brothers, bishops and priests and deacons, we have been given, just as the apostles have been given, the Great Commission: go, teach, and baptize the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. We cannot anymore keep our mouths shut. The communists tried, but through priests like Father George, the light came out of under that bushel, through the cracks. And a big crack, a big opening was the mouth of Father George that enlightened through his words all the people that were listening to him. There is a continual battle between good and evil, between right and wrong, between freedom and captivity of ideas, between purity and corruption. All these battles take place on only one field of combat, the heart of man. I, a priest of Christ, address this heart, for as Pascal has said, the heart has its own way of thinking which reason ignores, right? Reason alone is not going to give us everything. Some things cannot be explained. Things like love cannot be explained by science. There is not a formula for somebody to fall in love with you or you to fall in love with. What then does the priesthood mean? It means to be an enduring witness to human suffering and to take it upon your own shoulders, to be the one who warms the leper at his own breast and who gives life to the miserable through the breath from his own mouth, to be a strong comfort to every unfortunate one, even when you yourself are overwhelmed with weakness, to be a ray of shining light to unhappy hearts when your own eyes long ago ceased to see any light, to carry mountains of others' suffering on your shoulders while your own being screams out of with the weight of its own suffering. Now, we are in a pandemic right now, so we understand a little bit what suffering is, although we're far away from what happened during those times. But we have a little bit of taste of that, and we look to our priests, and expect from them to do everything for us, to make sure that they find a way to do services, if we want masks, let them bring masks. If they don't want masks, let them bring masks. If there's a political problem, they need to solve it or at least comfort us. If we are afraid, they need to give us courage. If we are sick, they need to give us prayers of healing. And they have to conform themselves to every will that we have, right? And I'm including myself in that when I look up to my bishop and expect things from him. But what we all don't understand is that just as the lay people are affected, so the priests are affected by these sufferings. Just as the priests are affected, so the bishops are affected. Just as the bishops are affected, the patriarch is affected. So everybody is in the same thing. Only some of us, from time to time, either we have been tasked by God or we taken upon ourselves, we have to gather the courage to help others. If everybody would flee and hide, there will be nobody to fight. There will be nobody to help the wounded. There will be nobody to comfort the hopeless. Right? So we have to gather that in ourselves, and we're not able to do it all the time. Priests are not superhumans; they are just humans. We look at them sometimes, at our bishops and our, the people that we look up to, and we say, well, you got to give us a solution. But sometimes they themselves are overwhelmed, and it's normal to be like that because nobody's perfect but God who is perfect in heavens. But you are all called to be that perfection, to live up to that ideal there. But we cannot do it all the time. We have our moments. Sometimes we do wonderful things that even we are so surprised. Did I really say that? Did I really do that? But that's not us. It's when we let the light shine through us. Because there is only one minister, and that is Christ. And our ministry is his ministry. So when we are able to take ourselves out with all our suffering, with all everything, and let God shine through us, it's difficult. It's difficult. But when you let that shine, that's the true light. That's the true the true faith and the true mission that is at that time accomplished. Your flesh will rebel and say, this heroism is absurd, impossible. Where is such a man? Where is the priest you describe so that I may put my own suffering upon his shoulders? Yet, nevertheless, he exists. From time to time, there always awakens within us the priest of Christ, who, like the Good Samaritan, will kneel down by the side of the man fallen among thieves, and putting him upon his own donkey, will bring him to the church of Christ for healing. And he will forget himself and comfort you, O man of suffering. So you see, even Father says it doesn't happen all the time. We cannot be at our 100% at all time. But we have our moments, and that's what God will use to edify us. Not the sins. He's going to bring up the things that we have done to rise ourselves to the beautiful office, the honor of the office that we have been entrusted with, unworthy as we are. Who else could be moved by your suffering today? Who else would bear your burden, giving you words of comfort? From whom else would you hear today the words of Christ? Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. I will give you rest. I have seen you, my young friend, bullied by your elders, mocked and insulted for the simple crime of being young. I spoke to you then as one in weakness and pain, as a sensitive and defenseless being. Then I saw you, to my horror and joy, bow and kiss my hand, that of a priest of Christ who brought you comfort. You see, when we kiss the hand of a priest or a bishop or any of the clergy, we're not kissing the hand of that man that is full of of pain and suffering and sin. We are kissing the hand of Christ that is extended through him to us. It's God who we honor. God who, in his care for man, has set for us teachers, fathers, to birth us again when we accept finally our faith. That is the role of a priest. Is not to only go and wear vestments and be always at a place of honor. Is a person that suffers himself and helps others deal with their own suffering. Because you have overcome death, to which atheist doctrine had condemned you, because you have been exalted above the ruins of fallen materialism through your youth and faith, I speak to you the words which Jesus spoke through the apostles to the Gentiles. They sound absurd to the prisoner of matter and materialism, to those who substitute taverns for churches and indecency for suffering. But to you they will resound full of spiritual meaning and truth. The preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? You see, the Romans in the old, when they killed martyrs, they hoped to quench the thirst of people for Christ, to extinguish the flame of Christianity that was starting to grow and consume the world. But the opposite happened. The flame grew stronger. The communists tried the same thing, and the faith grew stronger, and the light could not be contained under the bushel. Where are all these men, my friends? There are none of them left, but you have remained here alive and whole in the church of Christ, a holy people, won by God, a foundation stone on which the Orthodox spirit of the Romanian people is built. You are its only salvation and preservation through this age. Now, of course, here he speaks to Romanians. He speaks to people, and we spoke a little bit about his view of nationalism, which is not a way to divide, but is a way in which God has given to different people, different nations, certain roles in this world. And in the same way, he understood, in the same time, he understood that there is a universality of the faith. That as Christians, we don't belong just to the Romanian nation or the American nation or the Greek nation and so forth, but we belong to the new people, the new nation, the royal priesthood that is Christianity. In our case, Orthodox Christianity, which we consider to be the true faith there. So if we are in this true faith, then we have to be made aware again and again and again of this belonging to this royal priesthood and to this holy people that has been given to us through the priesthood of the church, through the mysteries, through the baptism and chrismations and holy communions and confessions and weddings and ordinations, a holy people that has been fed with a word or that comes from the mouth of God, the Logos, that has been fed with a bread from heaven that is Christ in holy communion, so that it will become so strong that the gates of hell will not prevail upon it. That is the church. That is the people that we belong to. And here, in our parish and in this Zoom meeting, I see people from everywhere. Not all of them are from Dallas or from ULES. Not all of them are Romanians or Greeks or Americans. But we all can speak the same language, which is the language of the Holy Spirit, the language of love, the language of faith, the language of freedom. And so that is the message of Father George for today. So